Hey, welcome to the Montana Lifestyles Podcast. My name is Tim Lee. This is Chance Tedesco.
Hey.
Before we get too into this, I have to tell you that I am now Chance's #1 fan. I walked by his booth about 3 days ago, and I haven't even had much of a chance to look at the art around this whole area because we've been doing this. And in the moment that I walked by, I did that whole, whoa, hang on. And I walked in there and I took a look, and the detail, the finite, beautiful detail, the very strong contrast, the beautiful lighting, the details in the eyes of the wolf that you have on display there. And I like that you went intense on the eyes and took them from that natural state of brown and kind of oranged them up a little bit to really make them kind of like explode.
Thanks, man.
I recognize all of that, and I love when people take those small steps to really make a big difference. And your work is loaded with that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like I try to make my central focal point typically the eyes, and this kind of like the cliche thing to say with wildlife art, but it's so true.
It's
like
very true.
They're kind of like the windows to the soul.
Yep.
So if you're going to try to make things, make paintings that are have emotion to them, or trying to tell a story, a lot of times the eye is kind of the key to that.
Yes.
So, and yeah.
Well, and to add to that, and this might sound nerdy, but when camera companies make their cameras, there's two things that they've been doing more recently. One, they make a function that looks at the eye and focuses on the eye. Second, they have now made a function to find an animal's eye and focus on that animal's eye. If that is that important, that they lock focus on that, then there must be a reason.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, and like typically, with... I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, is like you're either going to be looking at, if it's an animal you might be a little fearful of, you're inherently going to look at either the business end of them or the eye and see what the intention is, the intentionality is.
Yes.
So yeah, like that's kind of where I try to take my work and try to make at least the central focal point.
Right.
And then there might be secondary focal points or different things that kind of draw your eye around the work. So, but thank you so much for noticing that about my work. That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
You gotta like the validation.
Yeah.
And the reality
You're
is,
not too shabby yourself, man. Like your stuff is like, it stopped me in my tracks when I walked by yesterday. The skulls are, that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, I figured that it would be kind of nice to do something where instead of it being a stark white skull, which I do have a stark white skull here that I have painted, what if I was to shed some light on it and change the tone?
What I find interesting talking about the eyes is even with skull work, it still
holds true.
Yeah, because like your hard edges and like right where your contrast is where the eye would be. And it's funny that like we still find ourselves drawn to looking into where that would occur. So,
in life or in death, we find that specifically in the eyes.
Yeah.
Think about any movie that you've ever seen where you watch that death scene and you watch that person not change a thing about themselves, and they just remove the highlight.
Yeah.
They just remove, and suddenly you can feel death, or you can feel life because of eyes. Not because they stop breathing, not because all the blood rushes away or they turn blue, because of the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's even like biblical texts that talk about, the light in someone's eye.
Yes.
And that's kind of, if you can embody that in your work, or even in your case, if you're doing skulls, the absolute absence of it, like there's something,
devoid.
that really,
being devoid.
Yeah.
100%. I like that you pull towards the biblical side of that as well. By the way, let's also mention this, since you and I both attended this morning, they had Cowboy Church.
That was awesome.
I thought that was super cool.
Yeah. The message was great. I loved it.
And it was all about prayer, and the thing is, you guys know, and I'm very thankful that the people who do this podcast and partner with me, they are appreciative when we do talk about faith, and when we do talk about how important that is for us, even in our art walk and stuff like that. So I love when I bump into fellow believers. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's you're pouring your heart and soul into something.
Yes.
So like, I think it's important for that to shine through. And also, a lot of the work that I'm gearing up more towards and like trying to focus more on is storytelling.
Yes.
And it's kind of hard to keep that out of there. And you don't want to keep that out of your work.
No.
You want that to shine through because it kind of shows who the artist is,
Yep.
and making that connection with the viewer. And yeah, I think faith plays a huge part in that.
We're not painting something new. We're painting
Yeah.
something already created by the master hand.
Yep.
That's the simple fact of it, and we will never be able to compete. I sat down with Steven Seltzer, and I had an interview with him, and he said that all the colors in creation,
Yeah.
we will never have enough colors to match the true color of creation.
Yep.
You will never be able to fight against that.
Yeah.
And yet, that's the beauty of being an artist, is we try every single day.
Yeah.
And sometimes win. And
Yeah.
it's awesome that
Yeah.
we get that opportunity. But there's only one person who can create such a ginormous palette of color
Yeah.
that we cannot compete with.
Yep.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
we're just children trying to, kind of portray, mimic, and there's something really freeing about that. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
It takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's just fun. It makes it fun.
It truly does. It
Yeah.
truly does. And when it comes down to it, what do we look for most when we're trying to sell a piece?
Mm-hmm.
When someone walks up and you feel them go,
Take that breath in, and they're like blown away by it. Like,
yes.
It
Yes.
could be an emotion, or it could be, I've even had the privilege of having some people say like a certain scene or a certain, thing that happened to them in the field, like they remember it, and that person might not be here anymore that they experienced it with. And that, I had a deer painting commission, and I'm not saying this to brag, but to me it just really touched me. That I was like, whoa, this is more important than just me or just painting a pretty picture.
Yeah.
Was when I delivered it to the client, they started, kind of having a tear in their eye because they remember the hunting trips that they took with their dad and how he's not there anymore, and the deer that they take, and it really means a lot.
It's incredible when we get that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, no, it is more than us. It is
Yeah.
more than us, because we are trying to create the emotion that God gives us every single day. And so when we have that moment, when we have that laughter,
Yeah.
when we have that breath in, and when you realize, wow, someone has been that touched by your work,
Yeah.
that's a miracle in itself.
Yeah, we're connecting with another person.
Yeah.
And that's what art's all about.
Yeah.
It's connection, communication,
Yeah.
and connection. So
Not all things go exactly according to plan, and Chance
Yeah.
did have that this trip, and I do like to kind of update on life as we were going. So now you did have a minimum of 2 sales so far on one part, but then you woke up one morning and you found that someone had ran into your truck.
So Thursday.
Thanks, Great Falls.
It's not your fault, Great Falls. But. So, yeah, I woke up Friday morning, and my truck was parked head in to a spot, and I found it 2 spots over. Somebody, I think, grabbed it with maybe a cattle guard on the front of their truck and kind of dragged it. So I woke up to that. And I was like, okay. And I allowed myself about like 10 minutes of
Venting slightly.
And I feel like God kind of. I'm not gonna say God did that. I'm just gonna say like God kind of gives you situations to like what the sermon was talking about this morning is not necessarily to change the situation, but to change
your
us.
perspective of the situation.
And so I allowed myself 10 minutes of being pretty upset over it. And then I said, I'm all the way out in Great Falls. Am I really going to make this ruin the weekend? No. And it's been a phenomenal weekend. And I think I've enjoyed a lot more of it because of that situation going, well, it's not
you
that
don't
bad.
have a choice.
Yeah, it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but no, it's been a great weekend. It's just been awesome.
It really has been. And I am so thankful that you joined us for dinner last night, man.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really amazing, because we are loners. We do lock ourselves in our studios. We might not. We struggle to find people in our realm that understand us the way that we wish to be understood.
Yeah.
So in the moments like last night, where we're all sitting around a dinner table and just talking and laughing, how great is that?
It's awesome. It's cool. Yeah, especially talking color theory,
Yes.
composition, other artists that
with amazing guys like Steve.
Yeah.
Oh man, that guy can kill color like no one's business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, no, it's absolutely fantastic. So,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you showed up, and it was a pleasure to get to know you. I saw your work, and I'm like, all right, next social media I'm following right there. So,
Pleasure's all mine, man.
I deeply appreciate that you came out to the show. Where's home for you?
Pennsylvania, Bangor, Pennsylvania.
So, you got a bit of a drive back.
It's about 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to make the most of it because you got some great views on the way back, don't you?
Yeah, I'm probably going to go back the same way I came out, going through Billings, down through like the Black Hills into South Dakota. And I might take a little bit more time to really sightsee and stuff. But it was cool. This whole thing's been an amazing adventure, amazing people. So, yeah.
And that's the reality and I mentioned this with Elizabeth just before you. I've mentioned this so many times, but we fight to get here to see our friends or to make new friends that are going to change our lives in the future.
It's got to be a priority.
Oh, yeah. And if you don't sell and maybe the show doesn't go according to plan, the friendships that you walk home with are worth the reward in itself.
Yeah. And like I think I told you before, that kind of was my expectations coming out was, the sales are nice, that'd be great, but it's about getting closer and more interwoven into that art community. And that is really where you find your long-term success. So I mean, how many tips I'm going to take home and all the inspiration I've grabbed on this trip, it's like it's all going to spill into future work. So yeah.
And let's go ahead and add one more tip to this because Chance had a really good one. So I've talked with Ian, and Ian talks about how to mix your blacks, and then he showed Bailey, who's a good friend of ours, a technique on adding blue into the black, so it just makes it even deeper and more spacious. Now you had a tip that I've never thought about.
So when I first started, like most artists, I started with just your tube black, right?
Yep.
Threw that out. I was like, no, I'm not going to play around with that because it's just really flat. Then I started mixing my own, and I started mixing cadmium or ultramarine blue and burnt umber, which makes a really dark black. But the problem I was having was when you transition out of that black, it's not really eye catching. It kind of kills it.
Yeah.
So I started mixing.
It's muted.
Yeah, it's muted. And I really find the art that I love and I find really interesting is there's a lot going on in those shadows and in those transitions. So I started mixing, I went to a workshop with Dustin Van Wetchel, and he, in his studio in the workshop, he started teaching that mixing your own black with alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, you can get some really beautiful shades of purple when you transition
and
out.
I love that when you see those.
Yeah.
In the transition.
And so I played around with alizarin crimson, also just cad red and ultramarine blue, and then what he taught there, which I thought was super cool, and I do use that for pupils or nostrils where you have to have a real dark grabbing black. A little bit of phthalo green mixed in, which was
I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of that. Honestly, I bought one tube of phthalo green, tried it once, and it just felt so unnatural and so vibrant.
It's super saturated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't touch it for anything. It's the one tube that sits there, and I look at it and go, nope.
Yeah. It's a difficult color to work with, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it has its part to play.
It does.
Especially in the blacks.
Well, because of that phthalo, because of that intensity that the phthalo blues and the phthalo greens have, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I am that tube is going to feel my fingers on it today. I mean, I'm going to try that.
Cool.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
And I like this. For the non-artists, we're having fun. For the artists who do watch this, though, they're all going, shoot, where'd I put that phthalo green?
Yeah. I have so many things I've texted myself. I've got a laundry list of texts to myself
new tips.
just from this weekend. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I got to check that out. I got to try that.
And that's the beautiful thing is that when we get done here, yes, it's so sad to pack all this up, and yes, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get home, you want to get right back into the studio.
Yep. You take all those things you learn, and you don't necessarily just use what they tell you, but you make it your own.
Right.
You find a way to put it into your work, make it your own, so that your work is unique. So
So unfortunately, by the time this video goes out, the show will be done, and that breaks my heart because we fight to get to this point. In saying that, though, one of the ways that we make money as artists is we sell here, and then we very impatiently wait for the phone calls, the texts, and the contacts on social media and emails that say, hey, I saw you, and here's what I want.
Yep.
So how can I help get them to your stuff?
So I have 2 websites. This year I split my my print sales into a separate website, which is wildlifeartprint.com. It's not plural, just wildlifeartprint.com.
You got a good, nice job getting that domain.
Thanks, yeah.
Sweet.
I surprisingly enough, that was a free domain. I was like, yeah, I'm going to take that.
Score.
Yeah. So that's my website for my art prints. And then Tedesco fineart.com is where you can find all my originals. And if you want to sign up for a newsletter, and then of course, anything with Facebook, I put basically everything on my personal Facebook, and then my Instagram is just my name. So thanks for allowing me to plug that at the end there.
No,
so,
of course,
yeah.
of course. No, that we were sitting down at dinner last night, and I had a really exciting moment because Tara, who's on the other end of the room with you.
Yeah, I met Tara, yeah.
Yeah, and you're in the Legends West show, right?
Yeah, yep.
So she mentioned to me that two pieces were sold in from her booth, and this is her second show.
That's awesome.
She said that they were sold because the people saw the podcast.
That's cool.
You
Yeah.
know, if I don't sell anything, I've helped someone else.
That is super cool, man. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I will say this, I just subscribed last night to the podcast. Definitely subscribe, because I watched a few interviews so far, and as an artist, awesome information out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone has something to offer. Everyone has some wonderful input. And if not, everyone has a heart that, oh my gosh, if I sell your heart, I sell your heart.
Yeah. I like that.
But it's a fact. I mean, if there is the most beautiful painting in front of you, but the artist is terrible as a human being, it's not going to sell.
Just real quick, speaking on that too, why do we choose the genre of art we go into? And I can say, I'm from the East Coast, and there's not a really big push for wildlife or Western art specifically. But I can say one of the deciding factors was every time I went to a place and I met Western or wildlife artists, there's not a single one of them that I'm like, I don't know about that guy or girl. Every one of them, I'm like, that's another cool person.
That is the salt of the earth.
The down to earth people, and that's my kind of people. So
agreed. Same here. I need a favor from you, Chance. Would you please do the honor first of signing my magazine?
Oh, absolutely.
I have one more piece of homework for you once you're done with that.
You got it.
And I will tell the story as I have told it in every single episode as I try to find my pen here. When I married my wife, I was wearing this hat. So this hat has a lot of special meaning for me. And as I have continued to find special moments in my life, I've tried to assign something. When I got this podcast, the day that I was notified that I was going to have a sponsor, this watch came in the mail. And this watch has a lot of meaning to me because there's a lot of memories assigned to it. So anytime I do an interview, this watch has to be on my wrist.
Yeah.
Same thing. This hat means so much to me, and this is my first show.
That's awesome.
And it means so much to me. Would you please add to the value
Absolutely,
of this
man.
memory?
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
I would greatly appreciate it.
That's cool.
Folks, we're brought to you by Johnson Madison Lumber. If you are doing construction, making your dream home, making your new kitchen, bathroom, whatever the case may be, Johnson Madison Lumber can help you out. jmlumber.com. They're far more than just lumber. They also have everything you need to do construction. They will take very good care of you. And then big thanks to Farron's Furniture for providing these amazingly comfortable chairs. And it's made these interviews a lot more fun. It's really helped give that living room feel that makes this podcast what it is. Why we subscribe is because we get into this moment of comfort that you won't find standing in some. I could take my cameras, go to your booth, and show your artwork, which would be wonderful for you. But we will not get to this level of comfort
This is way more intimate.
It's way more intimate.
I like this much better, because then you're not in the middle of people coming in and like this is cooler. I like this a lot.
This brings a value that I think many people, many interviews don't bring, and I hate interviews. I love conversations.
That's cool. Yeah,
and
that's true.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
And so big thanks to Barron's Furniture for these chairs, because that does truly add to the value that we're trying to create here. So big thanks to them. And then finally, Hope Good, Chuck Fulcher, Mimi, and all the amazing people that made this a reality so that we could be here. Legends West, Best of the West, the Great Western Show, the Native Indian celebration of Native, and I keep forgetting the name completely through, but the celebration of Native American artists. This wouldn't be this way with over 240 artists in one place without their help.
Crazy awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
We hate for it to end. So in saying that, we are wrapping up here. Next time you watch the next episode, most likely we will be on to another topic from the awesome magazine that I get to work with. But set your clocks for next year. Chance and I, we've already set our clock for next year on a Saturday. As soon as the show's over, we got dinner planned.
Yep.
And we're looking forward to it already. And this is the beauty that you're going to find every time you walk around here. We're ready to make some new friends.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And we're ready to give you something beautiful to hang in your home and in your office. So,
cool.
Chance.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We got more coming your way next time right here on the Montana Lifestyles Podcast. God bless y'all. See you later.
God bless.